You are now entering the Take place to gather when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host. He is the managing editor of thetakeup.com. That's Andrew Wyatt. Hey, Andrew.
Hello. I am ready to break the nose of every beautiful thing.
That beautiful thing is our very own Ethan Tarantella. He has brought Suspiria 2018, Luca Guadagnino's reimagining for his pick for the Take-Up's permanent cinema. We'll see if it goes in, and we'll save it forever, and then we'll have one more thing. Thought we did an episode on this before, but it turns out like there's just deep Guadagnino Suspiria lore with the Take-Up, and well, maybe just with myself. I don't know. Andrew, I'm going to say this at the top. Do you know this is the first movie we ever watched together?
That doesn't sound right to me when you say that.
Is.
I know you've mentioned this to me before, but it feels like there must have been something before that.
I started writing for a different website we worked at 2018, May of 2018. Mm-hmm. My first review was Chloe Zhao's The Writer. Mm-hmm. You edited it to bits and pieces because I couldn't write. And then I was like, do you have any feedback? And you're like, well, it's your first. What?
Wait a minute.
It deservedly, you tore it to bits.
But saying I couldn't write is a little silly coming from a guy who was at that time writing about, like, you were coming out of film program at Webster. You had written a lot for that. You've done some writing. You've been to Telluride for your writing, right?
I still can't write. Anyway, but yeah, so it was only a few months later that this is, look, if that isn't the case, just let it be the case.
No,
we
I'm
get
willing
to write
accept
our
this.
own history. This movie teaches me.
Yes, I am both willing to accept it as fact and willing to accept it as take-up lore. They both are valid. Good.
Ethan Tarantella, who's always here, but you didn't know it. Ethan, say words for the people.
Hello.
Ethan's here. Ethan, this is your pick. This was not the first thing you wrote about for the Take-Up.
No, that probably would have been, Wicked. But I do share
Wicked.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment though, where it's like, I still feel like I'm not that good at writing, even though I'm probably okay at it at best.
I'd say you're pretty okay at it, buddy. All right. Well, Ethan, thanks for coming on. I mean, Ethan's been contributor to takeup.com. He's been working on the website. You've written for Kirkwood, Webster Times. You've written for ZekeFilm.org. You've written, and you just fresh out the fucking gate doing all this. So, yeah. He's like, yeah, please, less, please.
Yeah, out of Webster's now not really a thing film studies major program, though you could still take it as a minor.
Yeah, let's not get too deep into that. As an alum and a holder of that degree, film studies does a lot for you. You can start your own podcast. Right.
And that's about it.
That's fine. I guess we build connections.
You build connections. There you go. Webster University, builder of connections. Anyway, welcome to the microphone, and thank you for picking this film. So last week we had Keith and Sarah from Arcata and Cinnamon Bar. I stopped them when they were gonna give opinions of Suspiria, the 2018 Luca Guadagnino quote unquote remake. But I believe they like it. I'll speak for them because I did program this Suspiria for an outdoor Pride Month screening for them, and we had a lot of fun. I do remember I had a couple of lesbians come up to me and say, "How was that queer?" And I'm like, "Did you watch it? Like, first of all, Luca queer, and then he made a movie called Queer." Anyway, all of this to say, we've got history with this film, but I want to know, Ethan, what's your history with it?
It goes back to, I guess I would say like a long time ago, but you're probably gonna hate me when I say this. But back when I was 14, yeah, in
History.
2018, uh, I remember that was like probably the beginning of me getting into movies. So yeah, it would have been that would have been like fresh out of middle school. So like back then, my favorite directors were like Christopher Nolan and Edgar Wright. I wasn't really like making that leap yet that I eventually would in like high school. But I remember like at the time I was browsing IMDb like all the time. And one thing I would do usually is like go up to like latest posters because I like looking at like, potentially cool poster designs. And I think that was the first thing of marketing that I've seen for the Suspiria remake because I remember like the first thing I've seen of this was like a bloodied S on a wall where the tagline was like tremble, tremble, the witches are back or something. And it's 14-year-old me just thought, oh, that sounds really cool. And then like the next
You
day,
were right.
yeah. And then the next day, the teaser trailer got released, and I was just immediately floored by it because I am a lover of just like putting creepy music over like a bunch of random imagery from a movie in like a montage style. So it's like, oh, I'm immediately going to see this in October.
I think
I
with
think,
horror movies, that's like a particularly fertile methodology. The disturbing but context-free imagery with disturbing music is such a great, that tells me nothing about the plot. It's such a great trailer formula.
oh yeah, no, I still love it. I I've heard of the original before. Funny enough, I think yeah, the first time I ever heard about it was from a Watch Mojo video. That just
Yeah,
like
that tracks.
yeah, that happened to bring it up. But I remember like yeah, seeing the trailer and like looking more into the remake and like everything about that. It's like I remember like at some point over that summer, it made me watch the original because it just found it somewhere on Tubi. And yeah, I guess to get this out there, the original, you know, also great. Probably, yeah, one of the
We did put it in the take up canon last week.
yes, you did.
So we agree. Yes.
And I think it took me a while to actually watch the remake because I remember I didn't know at the time about the whole like limited release then wide release thing. So I thought it was gonna be coming out like late October, but I bet the game reality was coming out in like some point in November. That and I didn't have a driver's license back then. I couldn't like drive and like go see it by myself or anything, and like no one else was interested. So I basically waited until it came out on
I
streaming and
think like
DVD.
Amazon, I think, financed it through distributed it through their MGM label and then pushed it to Prime shortly after that.
They didn't even have MGM. It was all just Amazon then.
Amazon
It was-
Yeah, it was-
Studios,
Yeah, it was back when I
And
was
that's why the
Amazon's.
release was so terrible. I'm actually thinking about it now. I'm surprised they screened it for us, Andrew, because I then went to see it. It only played once, theatrically. Like, doesn't that track
That's
on
weird.
Halloween or something? And I saw it at Ronnie's local multiplex. And yeah, that was my second time seeing it.
Ethan, let me ask
We're-
you: had you been familiar with Luca Guadagnino at that point?
I was familiar with him only because I was following the Oscars at the time, and this was like happening right after
Me by Your
Call Me
Name.
by Your Name. So
Yeah.
it's like that's how I knew him, but I didn't see it yet.
So
But
this was your first Guadagnino film?
I think so, yeah.
I've still never
curious,
seen.
like-
I've still never seen like some of his early work. I Am Love is the first thing I remember seeing.
I Am Love is the first thing worth seeing. Melissa P is like, I don't know. They're all kind of experimental. He's not really finding his way, but he seems to be working in the industry, and especially Italy, and had this relationship with Tilda Swinton. Then he had this like pseudo doc called The Protagonist. I think his debut feature. He's done some short films, but I Am Love was such a sort of pronouncement of a different kind of filmmaker that it felt like a debut. If you had seen any of his previous films, it was certainly the first to get major distribution. It came out through Magnolia here in the States, but it was like kind of a mini critical sensation. A lot of people kind of caught onto him early as this sort of sensualist, this person who was really interested in the sensory elements of cinema. That's a lot of plosives there for you, sorry, podcast listeners. But he's really continued as being like the cinematic patron saint of desire. And his films really unfold in a very sensual way, I would describe him, even when they're not necessarily explicitly about sex. And I would argue that Suspiria might be the one that's the least about that, but is one of the sexiest in the weirdest ways.
But Ethan, you definitely saw this as, oh, here's a cool looking horror movie and a remake of a famous movie. You didn't go into it as a Lucas stan or anything.
No, but I think it's what made me become a Lucas stan, because when I first saw it, I don't think I've seen a movie that moves like Suspiria.
To be fair, there are not a lot that move like this movie moves.
Yeah. No,
Can
especially
we kind of set up how this new version works and against the old version? I mean, we just did an entire episode talking about Argento's, and this is such a reimagining that it has, I mean, it kind of gets at some things we didn't talk about, kind of the post-war hangover in Europe and specifically Germany. It explicates those ideas to be really thematic ground in this one. And it looks very different. It looks like Germanic cinema of the time. It's taking things from Schroeder, Fassbinder, yeah, being the like big hallmark for Guadagnino and me, by the way.
Can I cheekily quote my own review, since I went to the trouble of restoring my old review from 2018?
And that's
about
at what? It's at the take-up.com.
The taste.com. I say, this movie is gray and severe, where Argento's film is garish and florid, political rather than mythic, forlorn rather than fantastical. If the first Suspiria is Matisse's Dance, then the second is Francis Bacon's Pope Innocent X, which, if you know those paintings, you know the difference in style. But I also want to quote another. The difference between the Suspiria's like quote mining industry is a beautiful one. I also really love David Ehrlich's opening sentence. Based on the screenplay of Dario Argento's giallo classic, Guadagnino's radical new take is less a remake of the original film than it is an estranged sibling. The fraternal twin sister who recognized herself as the black sheep of an already twisted family, ran away from home, became a fascist, and is dressed in gray every day since then. Only drawing some blood can you tell the two are even related.
It's crazy that this is his follow-up, and it should have shown us what a kind of provocateur Guadagnino is. He makes this like beautifully melancholy but autumnal romance film that has its own kind of interesting angles to it too. It is not
autumnal?
Pure honey.
I would say it's summer.
Oh, it's summer movie. You're right. Yes.
The adjective I always think of when I think of Call You by Name is Apollonian. It is
very
it's as warm and gay as the summer in a Greek glade.
Beach. Right. So and it's nominated for Best Picture. It wins the Screenplay Oscar, and it announces a new star in Timothée Chalamet. And he says, what should I follow it up with?
How can I piss off the film bros the most?
There's rumblings that it's going to be a remake of Suspiria, and people are like, that's going to be so cool. And the first footage that's shown, and I believe it, that the 2018 Cannes Film Festival, is Olga's puppet dance. And people are, it's all marketing. They're saying, oh, people are puking, people are passing out watching this thing. It's pretty difficult stuff to watch, but it's I think it's kind of a beautiful dance. But to compare the two things, I mean, that's what you're getting. Is you're getting this beautifully ugly thing, very purposely ugly thing, thematically. Okay. Anyway, Ethan,
But-
set up this version of Suspiria for us.
So, you know the whole premise of, yeah, the original Suspiria, German dance school run by coven of witches. Basically imagine that, but they fill in the blanks. So yeah, Germany, 1977, right in the middle of the German autumn, which is during the Baader-Meinhof kidnapping scandal. Like in the movie, it's like everyone's obsessed with it. There's like constant radio, TV coverage of it, constantly playing in the background. There's like even a scene where they were like at a hotel and like there was a bombing that just goes off screen, and it's like very much is like setting of like we're at a very miserable time right now, which then is perfect because the main character Susie Bannion, who is now a Mennonite from Ohio.
Wait, wait,
it's-
wait. Wait. Ohio. You have to say it like that. I've never heard someone say Ohio in such a way. Thank you,
Well,
Dakota.
I don't think I've heard anyone speak like Dakota does in this movie.
Although, spoiler
Most-
alert, there is a reason for that, at least in the context of the film.
I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, but
Sorry.
like,
She is something play acting as a human,
when
literally
you
and
said
figuratively.
Germany, there's something like the moment where she's like, when you said Germany, that I thought of like that includes me. I'm now in Germany. It's like, fuck yeah, girl. But
Just
yeah,
every line is like dripping with this like horny, hermetically horny, like Mennonite. Yeah, like she's
yeah.
busting. And she does literally bust. Yeah.
Oh
From
yeah,
the
in the
bust.
greatest way possible. Uh, so yeah, she comes into this scene, and the way I like to describe this movie almost as like a joke is like a small town girl moves into the big city, basically learns the power of friendship and love, I guess, and at the end manages to blow everyone's minds with her undiscovered talent. So, but that's like the quickest summary I can give of this movie.
Someone
But
needs to
Very
recut the
good.
trailer with like comedic rom-com music and like completely change the
I
tone
just
of it.
Yeah.
recut it like it's like a episode of Sex in the City or something. Uh, but yeah, she comes in, enrolls into this school, which then it becomes interesting because it's like she has no background in dance, like at all. She has basically
She's
not
a
much of a
fan.
past to.
She's a fan though. Like
Yeah.
she has like a kind of innate talent.
Yeah. And like she said earlier, she's seen the school teachers of the Marcos Dance Academy. Or I think, yeah, it's just Hans. But yeah, she's seen them before when they toured in New York. So she got like since childhood, she had like a connection with these people. But they take her in anyway, and it turns out that yeah, she's actually is like a very talented dancer in the style that they do, which is like this interpretive dance, Mary Vigman inspired style. And
Tina Bausch, I would say, is like the obvious
Yeah,
inspiration.
Bausch, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's ballet, but it's a very, very different kind of ballet.
yeah, it's very like more say like primitive and almost say like uglier. Like I remember like when I first saw this, it's like this is actual dancing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But I
it's a
think
complete-
that's essential to what the film is doing with how it uses dance. One thing I love about this film is it uses motion and movement the way that the first film used color, in the sense that it makes
Yeah.
it part of the text in an essential way. And I don't think it's a mistake that part of what that style of dance is it's so assaultive. It's it's a lot of thrusting. It's sharp, short, rapid movements with pauses. It feels like a martial art, the way that it's filmed and the way that it's presented in the film. And of course, in the context of the film, dance is spell work, right? That's what we're getting at here. That the witchcraft, which I think is one of the genius touches of this film, is the way that it takes something, the dance thing is almost incidental in Suspiria 1977. Like it's a setting, it's a dance school. There
It's
is
a
some
bit of
dancing
color,
shown, but
yeah.
it doesn't matter in the context of the film's events. In this film, the dance matters. It's essential to what the witches, what the coven. Spoiler alert: there's a coven at the school, and they're up to nasty shit. So what
Yeah.
they're doing is their spell work is somehow integrated with the dance that they're doing.
But it's not really a spoiler because you're informed early on that yes, they are up to very witchy things. And
That they want to
I
cut out my cunt and put it on a plate. I think it's the
oh
line.
yes, they sure do. And but that's actually a great point because the kind of movement and the movement within these spaces, it's action, but it's also political action. And I don't even mean that as like art as a political act. And that is certainly what the purpose of the dance is. And the dance is called, come on, Ethan, what's the name of it?
Book.
Volk, which is folk. It's the people. It's the group action. And this is
We
they're
also
like a
can't say
political
that in
group.
Germany. We also can't say that in Germany without getting that Nazi shadow, which the film also alludes to, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of conversation or like alluding to involvement in the party, but also them being outside of the party because they've always sort of existed. And that the nefarious things this group is up to, other than like, usurping individual souls and lives for their own political gain, is that they allowed for the Nazi party to exist, but also perpetuate the atrocities that they were doing and in their own backyard, right? But remained a kind of untouched, unvarnished entity outside of the war. And that's where all this, like, the idea of like this Germanic guilt after the war comes from, guilt or the lack of guilt being another topic.
Or alternatively,
but-
the overcorrection to like communist violence, right? Like that's what that's what the setting, this specific setting brings in 1977. As Ethan, as you said, like the Bader-Meinhof complex, the Lufthansa hijacking. And of course, like part of what the film does is it gives us a literal survivor, World War II survivor, in the form of Tilda Swinton's dual role. Ethan, how do you feel about that choice? That sort of very, very Cloud Atlas-y, let's put Tilda Swinton in a bunch of latex and make her an old man.
Well, one, I think you mean Lutz Ebersdorf.
Oh,
And-
sorry.
They tried to pass that. Please explain that. They tried to pass that off for so long.
It's
Even giving him an IMDb page with trivia on it. Like, you guys, come on, you got more to do. Go promote the film properly.
I will say this did have the most out there marketing where it's either we have a scene that's so disturbing, made people puke, to then we allowed Tilda Swinton to write an IMDb page over a fictional person who's supposed to be like this newcomer actor who's also a real life psychoanalyst, apparently. And it's like the funny thing is, like, in interviews that would constantly get bring up of like, it's Swinton, right? Like, this is obviously supposed to be Swinton. And Luca and like everyone would be like, oh, no, that's Lutz Ebersdorf. I worked with him. He's incredible. But apparently it's like I don't know if this is true or not, but it's like apparently after they finally pulled the rug and like, yeah, no, it's Swinton. Apparently there were like some actors on set who didn't know and thought that Swinton's character was just like an actual actor.
That feels like urban legend. That can't be true.
Yeah. I don't know. I had a friend who saw this movie in its original release with me text me 3 months ago or something and say, I am just now finding out that's Tilda Swinton. I'm like, I don't know how observant you really are, sweetie. However, I love that because they tried so hard to make that a thing.
And what do you think about that? What do you think about that, Ethan? Does it achieve anything? Like, what is the function of that stunt casting in the context of the film?
Well, I say it works thematically because in the movie, Tilda Swinton's basically playing 3 characters. One is Madame Blanc, like one of the head teachers who attaches herself very much to Susie and like helps her grow into becoming a better dancer, while also simultaneously grooming her for like an upcoming ritual the coven plans to do with her. The other is Mother Marcos, who is basically the main leader of the coven, and is basically like this grotesque, I'd say like almost like fascistic figure who really only inspires like cruelty and violence in people and just perpetuates it. And then yeah, the third person is, I mean, I'm blanking on the character's name, but yeah, the Lutz Ebersdorf figure.
Dr. Klemperer is his
Dr.
name in the
Klemper, thank you.
film. Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting because it's like a spectrum of, I'd say like, I guess, viewpoints post World War II, where it's the people that, you know, perpetuated the events are now living underground and trying to like enforce
That's a good point.
themselves still in like the political landscape, like 30, 40 years later. And then Blanc, who I'd say like within this spectrum was like the centrist figure, where it's like she's still serving for Marcos, but is also like trying to do her own thing. Like I guess do something
Trying
more.
to usurp her, but trying to
Yeah.
usurp her within the political tools of the system, right? There's that vote early in the film where Blanc loses to Marcos. She's tried her legitimate means to seize power, and that didn't work.
So I think you're absolutely right there that scans a sort of like centrist, what I guess in Germany we call liberal Democrat.
So then with Kemper, he's like the survivor perspective of like a person who wasn't really involved with anything involving World War II, but then that's also the problem. It was that, as the movie reveals, he is grieving over the disappearance of his wife Anka, who may or may not have.
By
Jessica Harper.
Yeah. Which, yeah, fuck yeah, Jessica Harper. But it's like he doesn't know if she disappeared or was captured by the Nazis or killed, or if like she managed
There's
to get out of the
some
country.
guilt around
Yes.
some guilt around her disappearance and his culpability in that.
Yeah. And then he becomes involved with this coven because one of his patients was Patricia, who we see in the opening being like extremely paranoid and like on the verge of a breakdown. And through her, she like figures out more about this coven and then basically gets himself involved and like indirectly also gets himself involved in like the ending ceremony and literally serves as the witness. Like it cannot be unsubtle enough where it's like he's there lying naked on the floor screaming like I am innocent because I feel guilt. And like it's very on the nose of like what he represents, but at the same time what makes this movie work is that it is offering both a rather compelling thesis on like this point in time of what everyone was going through, while also making sure to make it as complicated and overwhelming as possible.
That's such a good point. And the first scene, you know, following Luca's career, I would say career, that's so funny. His career up to this point is, you know, he is this person who would follow in the footsteps of like a Luchino Visconti meets Martin Scorsese. Like he's someone who's a stylist but is concerned with the body and sensuality and very like flowing operatic movement. But the very first scene in this film is so sort of multi focused in a way, unfocused really. It's cutting from across the 180-degree line like many different ways, and there's no sort of coherence except that the coherent kind of aesthetic feature is its incoherence cinematically. And so you're in this mindset immediately. He's like cutting to spines on books. He's cutting this direction, that direction. You have really, there's no way for you to orient yourself in this. And yet you still see the Guadagnino of it. And as the film progresses, it starts to become kind of more clear where his mind is with all of this political action and this political circle that he's making after you've seen the film a few times. I don't know that anyone walking out of this like is going to get the kind of ideas that we're talking about, because the film is like obfuscates so much what we're kind of distilling from its editing and from its schema, like, but it's all sort of there swimming in it too. You kind of get hints at it, even if you don't completely understand
I don't know if
what's
I agree
going
with that.
on.
I do want to push back on it a little
You're
bit.
you're smarter than me.
No, I did want to say that like reading over my review from 2018, I kind of was a little more mixed on it than I am now. Like I've warmed to the film a lot more over time, and one of my gripes about it was its overextension of these like political metaphors. I at the time when had seen it only once, I found it all a bit clunky in that respect. I liked it, but I sort of dithered about the execution of it and what the purpose of it was and so forth. But
What did you find clunky about it? Did you find it clunky in its execution of the ideas, or did you find its filmmaking sort of
no, not the filmmaking.
um
Not the filmmaking. I remember vividly you mentioning that this was the first film we saw together. And I do remember sort of being a bit disoriented by that opening sequence where Patricia goes to. It's the scene where like Patricia goes to Klemper's office, right, and sort of
mhm.
unloads on him all her paranoid suspicions. And I do remember finding the editing sort of like, whoa, what is going on in this? Like I had already seen in This Is Love and Bigger Splash, so I knew Guadagnino's methods, and it felt a little bit jarring. But of course, it accurately reflects Patricia's sort of scattered brain and her paranoia in that moment as she's trying to get all this information out and tell somebody about what she's experiencing. So it does reflect that. But I'm thinking more about like the Cold War sort of signifiers, the 1977 of it all, the constant background noise from the radios and televisions, the invocation of this symbology, the RAF symbology, and so forth. At the time, I found it a little clunky. Now I've sort of like warmed up to what he's doing with that, all that. But
I
I do
think
want to
there's
talk
just
about.
a disconnect. I don't feel like it is. Maybe it's clunky in that it's like the idea of what this coven represents and the political spectrum and the political ideology of the left and the right in Germany at the time. I'm not sure those lines are like
I
clear
don't
or
think I.
drawn, but
No, I
in a
think you're
way
right.
that I find compelling.
No, I think you're right. And my sort of solution that I've settled on thematically for enjoying this film is I don't view the coven as metaphorical necessarily of anything in particular. I view it as a microcosm. It's a polity like anything else. And
Mm.
in reflecting the polity on the outside of the coven, outside those brutalist gray walls of the studio of the academy, which is sort of riven by these deep political divisions, by this denazification that is still ongoing, by this communist terrorist violence, all that is reflected microcosmically within the polity itself, within the dance studio, which itself is being torn apart by this political struggle. For me, one of the thematic emphases, one of the points that the film is trying to emphasize is how non-unique the situation inside the
Yes.
studio actually is, as much as the witches regard themselves as these primal creatures of sort of different feminine power, so different from that patriarchal violence outside the studio. They're really going through the same sort of upheavals and revolutions that is happening outside the studio. That's how I view it. I don't view them as being like a one-to-one metaphor for anything in particular. It's just this is how the writers I think are saying this is how polities happen. Revolutions
It's
are
another
constant, inevitable.
iteration of the cycle. It's another
Right.
iteration of the cycle.
It's an
And this
occult
that
version
you
of
can
that rather than a political version of it, but they're still doing the same things. They're still having bloody revolutions. And at the end, at the climax, they're still having purges, right? Like that's what happens at the end. It's a purge of the dissidents.
Mhm. Ethan, what do you make about that? And what did you make of it at the time? Because it's operatic, and maybe explain it in more detail if you feel like it. We only have so much time.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I honestly, I'm okay with this being like 2-3 hours. Honestly, just make it like a
and we should mention that would mean as long as the film, because it is
Yeah.
it's a more epic feeling film, to whereas the original Suspiria feels like a bedtime tale.
Yeah. But yeah, to address the cloaked black figure in the room. So yeah, we finally get to the climactic sacrifice ceremony, whatever you want to call it, Sabbath. And it's revealed there that Susie, the naive girl from Ohio, is actually Mata Suspiriorum, one of the original three mothers, and has come there to purify the Marcos group. And what happens is a sequence that
So ugly. It's
it's
I
incredible.
thought it is really incredible in what he's doing and how it stands in his filmography, and especially following up with Call Me by Your Name with this. And I remember the first time watching it kind of just being in awe of its ugliness. The camera
That Tom
does
York
like
score, that
some,
loungy Tom York score. What the heck is
yeah,
going
the
on
step
there?
printing. Yeah, it's loungy, it's languid, and it's in slow motion, but it's also bathed in red light, to the extent that it's kind of difficult to see what's going on. And there are things that I've seen this movie close to 10 times now. I, spoiler alert, I absolutely love this movie, but there's she's opening her heart, and it's vaginal, and it's like, it's so kind of out there that even at the time I'm like, I don't really know how to feel about this, because aesthetically it's so displeasing. I don't like looking at it.
It is interesting because when I first saw it, because it came out during the whole trend of like good for her horror cinema. So it was like,
Sure.
oh yeah, this is like a statement of female empowerment. Awesome. I've seen this movie like hundred times, and like, look, going back to what I said earlier, it's like how it complicates its thesis constantly.
Mm.
It is like that plus like the epilogue with her at Klemper's apartment. I do love how like it refuses to give a very straightforward stance on all of this of like, is Suspiriorum like a good or evil figure? Because she lies somewhere in between, where it's like she gets rid of the evil witches or like the Marcos supporters, and then also grants peaceful deaths to all the students that were still like forcibly kept alive, but were also tortured and disfigured by the witches.
The folk horror lens, right, would say that Mother Suspirium is like something older and more primal than good, the
Yeah.
notions of good or evil. Like good and
Yeah.
evil aren't really even applicable here. This is something ancient and powerful and mysterious, who is capable of great mercy and great savagery. Like that's the sort of like feminine Baba Yaga energy of it all, right?
Yeah, like as Klemper
Then
says, pre-God, pre-devil.
Mhm.
And yeah, then we get to the ending where what you said earlier comes more into play, where it's like she's like more mysterious and whatnot, where she finally reveals to Klemper and the viewer like what exactly happened with Anka, who turns out to have sadly passed in a concentration camp. And it's complicated because also what she says is like, we need guilt and shame, but not yours. And then proceeds to erase his memory of the coven, of the dance academy, and of Anka.
And ours, apparently.
Yeah.
If you stay to the post-credit stinger.
So do
And then,
you
yeah,
think of
essentially,
that as an act of mercy or savagery? Is what she's saying is like, we don't need your guilt, but she's completely robbing him of that experience
yeah,
And his
exactly.
identity in a way.
It's like
and
30,
his, yeah.
40 years worth of identity. And so it does end on that note, because then it's that plus the ending shot, where it then goes back into what the movie was doing, where it's like a movie about everything post World War II, involving like history, us like reeling from that, and like all the other stuff that happened afterwards, like the Cold War, where all this stuff will be forgotten in time because all the people that were originally there will die out, and all the things that were there originally will be either be remodeled or rebuilt or whatever, which then just makes the final shot even more powerful, which it cuts back to Klumper's, I think it was called, a Dacha or something.
It's his
like,
Dachau. It's his like
Yeah.
little summer home. It's a German/Russian thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an
And
East
it's
German
like,
thing specifically. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, you don't know what period in time was that. I rewatched this scene like several times just to see if I can see like, okay, is this supposed to be like a couple years later? Is this supposed to be like present day? Because it looked in the shot, there's a family living in his Dachau, and it's like, well, it looks like one of us on the phone. So I'm trying to think, does that look like a landline or does that look like an iPhone? Because it's like you can barely
It's like a
see
cell
it.
phone to me. I think the
Yeah.
idea is the present day to kind of the way the film collapses history into like not a linear movement, but is something that's like kind of always ever present, always now, not in the way that we think of it, but in a way that it's like this
Ongoing
cycle
dance
of
that never stops, you might say.
yes, exactly.
I do find it
Um,
funny that Susie's like quote unquote mercy to Klemper basically undoes his whole function in the third act. That like he was supposed to be there as a witness and she's erasing his memory. But
Yeah.
Well, right,
there
but
is
she's not leading that. She
right.
really isn't leading that. That was their whole thing to bring him in as a witness.
Right. And I do think it's interesting that Klemper, and this is like why I think it's a really good screenplay, is because all these themes are sort of bubbling together. But like Klemper's role in particular is really fascinating because he's first of all, he's the only real male character of any note in the film. The modification that Guadagnino and the writer makes to make this an all women dance academy, I think is critical. The men are kind of like incidental in Argento's remake, in Argento's original anyway. So it's not a big leap, but I do think it's important that Klemper is the only male character, and how he's set up with receiving the information from Patricia and then interfacing with Sarah later in the film sets him up to be the investigative sort of male character, the sort of classic male investigator character who's going to figure everything out and sort out what's happening. But of course, he's rendered completely impotent, which is how the witches, how this sort of matriarchal, powerful coven views him anyway, that he's a useless, past his prime. His only utility is as a witness. He doesn't actually uncover anything. So I do find it fascinating the way the film sort of sets him up to fill a certain trope and then denies that from him and makes him sort of an accessory to the events. And the minute that Susie arrives at the school, sort of the fate is already written, right? Like that's part of the power that it implies that the mother Suspiria has, that when
And
she's
it's
there,
idea of time too, and
right?
that it's not fated; it's already happened. It's like
Right.
it's we're on this timeline. I think it's so beautiful too, like the queering of Suspiria, and this why I think it's such a great queer film is that it's looking at calling out these specific gender roles, subverting them in a way, but also being so incredibly, in its femininity in a way that, expresses it in ugly ways and in also sort of more traditionally feminine, quote unquote, beautiful ways, but making those things one and the same. Saying, the line that you said, break the nose of every beautiful thing. It's like this, violence can be feminine too. And the idea of a group of women with complete autonomy, not only like bodily, but political autonomy to the extent where they don't have to participate in a war that's in their backyard.
They make a point about that, like even in the setting itself, they say to Susie that she doesn't have to pay tuition because they were set up generations ago as an autonomous women-only collective. Like it's a very radical institution to begin with, but of course it's harboring something not modern at all, something ancient and powerful and malicious. So like that dichotomy is what fascinates me about this film, is how it presents the coven specifically, and that. Like that, I love that voting scene early in the movie that he does with that like beautiful 360-degree pan where we go around the room as the sort of witches are slowly gathering, and their stage business is so
they're
mundane.
Making breakfast.
Yeah, they're smoking, they're making breakfast, they're sort of slowly gathering around this table to have a vote on who will lead their evil demonic coven. Like I love
and
the
it's
way
all done psychically.
Right. I love the way that it's all sort of embedded in a very tactile. Again, the production design of this film is immaculate. The tactility of the 1977 of it all is really kind of immaculate. I love that. They're not trying to be as fantastical as this film can be with sort of like, again, that climax and everything. The way that it's embedded inside this sort of banal setting is fascinating to me.
I'd say that if there's one filmmaker, it's Fassbinder that he's specifically calling upon here.
Yeah.
And not only because a lot of his films are about the coven, and not literally, even though, some of them allude to that, but something like The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant and the political action that's happening in a single room between, 3 or 4 people, excuse me, 3 or 4 women of different, with different power structures. Um, and of course, that we have Ingrid Coven, Fassbinder's ex-wife, and oh, what's her name? Come on, somebody.
Angela Winkler?
Angela Winkler. Yeah, Angela Winkler, who's, a Fassbinder player too. Like, in the whole 77 of it. But these political ideas playing out through genre filmmaking is something that he would be interested in. And I think about there's a couple elements of Ali Fear It's the Soul where Brigitte Mira, who plays the main character, it's an All That Heaven Allows remake, right? But it's doing the same thing that this Suspiria does with its origin point, that it's doing Ali Fear It's the Soul does with All That Heaven Allows. And setting it in contemporary Germany, and this love story about 2 people who shouldn't or couldn't be together because of society. But it's really interesting because Mira's, it's alluded to that her husband was a Nazi. They frequent like old Nazi haunts. There are all of this kind of like political imagery of how Nazism just completely haunts contemporary Germany. And if anything, I think about the scene where she's just talking about her husband's medals that are on the wall. Well, her husband was a Nazi, so, and she's trying to date a black man, and black immigrant. And so I think about that in the kind of like unsubtle subtlety of that, something that if you're watching a genre film that's ostensibly like a romance drama, or maybe like, a horror fairy tale, something like that, where Guadagnino is just explicating all of that into this great epic.
You are kind of making me wish that Fassbinder had made a horror film. Like I kind of want, if I had one wish, let's bring him back and let him make one horror film. Anyway,
you know what the secret is? The secret is that all of Fassbinder's films are horror films.
There we go.
They're the most horrific. The most horrific.
What do you mean? We already got our wish. We had the Suspiria remake.
Yeah, there you go.
It's just
all right.
Fassbinder meets Possession, basically.
That's very
fair.
cute. Yes. Yes. Okay. Any other quick notes? I mean, there are so many things in this film. The way Guadagnino is such a stylist, I just feel his films first and foremost. There's a lot of heft here that we're talking about, but ultimately, like, the first experience with this is like being inside a dancer's body and just like getting jerked around from place to place, but seeing all these beautifully ugly sights. Think about the scene with Madame Blanc and Susie where they're having their chicken dinner, where she's talking about doing the dance is like how it feels to fuck, but not like fucking like a human, fucking like animals, like a primal fuck, which
Yeah.
is fucking the earth. I love that. But I specifically love when Madame Blanc goes to like the bathroom, comes out of the bathroom, is standing towards the camera. This is a cutaway shot towards the camera, but behind Susie, who's also facing the camera. And it is the world's shortest split diopter shot. And if you understand how split diopter works, you know that it takes an enormous amount of work to pull it off, set it up. But it is, I don't even know if it's a millisecond that he cuts to this thing, but that's the kind of filmmaker he is. It's like this kind of like intuitive, very sensualist stylist that I respond to every single time, even when he's like riffing on either Woody Allen or Bergman, as he's supposed to do in his latest film, After the Hunt. I always sort of get inside of them and feel so much that I think sometimes they might even blind me to their flaws.
I mean, you say intuitive, but one of the things I also love about this film in particular is how clearly Guadagnino has studied like the greats of 1970s horror filmmaking. Like, there's a lot stylistically here that reminds me of Don't Look Now.
Sure.
There's a lot that reminds me. There's a little bit that reminds me of The Wicker Man and The Shouts and some of the British films. Like, there's those touches that feel period, like the snap zooms and the ultra slow motion and so forth, but also don't feel like out of place in a 2018 Guadagnino film either. Like they
They're
feel
a
like
part of
both
his language.
Yeah.
No,
He's
it's like
like
that's
he's sorry, go ahead, Ethan.
that's like also one of the most impressive things about it is, like you said in the last episode, where it's like we don't really see anyone trying to like recreate Suspiria, because then if they go too far, it becomes a pastiche and nothing
Yeah.
but that. Somehow,
It's so
like he made,
singular.
yeah, it's like somehow he manages to pull so much from like 70s filmmaking, like yeah, what you were saying about like all the folklore and like other European horror movies at the time, but also like I'd say like 70s political paranoia thrillers. Like it kind of has the same drabness and grayness as like 3 Days of the Condor or
Parallax
something.
View, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like
Conversation.
Conversation.
it is
yeah.
impressive how he makes it like entirely his own thing, where like you can tell all of the influence is there, but it's not like a one-to-one thing of like oh, it's like a pastiche or like a collage of like 70s cinema. It's like no, he's using that properly to like communicate something that hasn't really been communicated in a while.
Well, I mean, the
It's
masterstroke is that he's drawing from so many movies, except for the original Suspiria. Like,
Yeah.
that's like, it's like he sat down and wrote out the first lines on the notepad were remake Suspiria, but nothing like Suspiria or any other Argento film for that matter.
But it doesn't feel reverent towards any of those things to
No,
me. Like
it's breaking
even
the nose
Fassbinder.
of every beautiful thing.
Yeah. All right. I think we should psychically vote of whether or not this goes into the take up canon.
I mean, you've already said you've seen this film 10 times. I think I know how you're going
We're
on this one, Josh.
Are you not picking up my psychic brainwaves? We're psychically voting right now.
I'm a lead box. I get nothing.
Oh wow! Can't believe it's
A
going
psych-
into the take up
psychic,
canon.
Well,
a psychic
the real-
actually told me that once. She said I'm a lead box. And
The
she
real
can't get anything
question
from me.
though is like, is
Insane.
this the best Guadagnino?
Okay, so we're gonna say yes, it's going in the canon. It doesn't matter how we vote because it's the last episode of the year. Oh, I am curious, Andrew, if you would throw it in.
I'm inclined to. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I will vote for it. Just because I think it's so unique and interesting. It's maybe not my favorite Guadagnino though.
It's not my favorite either. Ethan, go ahead if you want to rank them for us. Anyway, we'll list. We didn't do it from memory last time, but I'm gonna try from memory what everything is in the canon. But let's continue the Guadagnino talk. Ethan, is it your favorite?
It is like I haven't seen anything like pre Call Me by Your Name, so like all like it. I've only seen like his recent stuff.
What?
Which-
the
Bigger
fuck?
Splash.
You haven't seen
Bigger
a bigger
Splash.
Oh
splash?
yeah,
is great.
I've seen Bigger Splash. I've seen Bigger Splash.
Okay.
I think that also says a lot. It's like I forgot that I saw a Bigger Splash, even though that movie's also
Mm.
great. But yeah, I think it goes like what? Suspiria, then either Call Me by Your Name or Challengers, then Queer, then Bigger Splash, then
Where's Bones
Yeah,
and all in there?
well yeah, then I still need to finish it, but like We Are Who We Are, that a show that he did for HBO back in 2020.
Glad you brought it up. I love that show. Yeah, and I
It's-
would consider it one of his great works.
And then
Yeah, this
also-
is a good ranking. Where's After the Hunt?
well, obviously it'd be last, but I still liked it.
Yeah,
Which,
that's fair. I think it's
Mostly
last for
I'm
me
just
too,
saying-
but I still liked it.
That was the other thing I noticed more watching this after seeing After the Hunt. It's like Suspiria is like a better movie about the whole queering of the mentor-student relationship than most of what After the Hunt was doing. Because if at least in Suspiria, it like feels more pointed, while After the Hunt was like more intentionally so like all over the place.
I love the scene in Suspiria 2018 where all the teachers are going to dinner with the students, and Blanc has that like long shot where she's just staring at Susie and she realizes
Yeah.
something terrible is going to happen. she can't quite put a finger on what's going to happen, but she knows it's something really bad. Of course, the punchline being that it was all going to end up in her favor anyway, because Mother Suspirium's opposed to Helena Marcos. But like, I just love the dread of that sequence and how like all the witches and two students are jabbering over here on the sides, and there's just that they got them seated at the ends of a long table, and they're just Swinton's just sitting there smoking, like not minding her ash, looking in terror at Susie, knowing that something's coming. I love it.
I also like
People
love this.
question me of whether or not this is a queer film and it contains that scene. Like,
Right.
come on.
That and like the other moment where they're like in a room talking, and she's talking about her performance for like, the Olga scene earlier, and she just like takes a long drag out of her cigarette, stares at Susie, and it's just, you looked, and like doesn't say anything, and it's like that just conveys so much that I kind of love it.
It's Susie's response in that scene, I think, is something like, why are people so accustomed to assuming that the worst is over? The great line.
We're always so ready to think the worst is over is a line I think about every month, at least.
At least these days.
I'm
Shout
not
out David
kidding.
Kashimnesh.
Yes.
I
His
love it.
frequent collaborator. So I gotta say, it might not be my favorite. It's the one I've seen the most. I don't know. I don't know what. Maybe it is my favorite. The guys, I don't know. I love all of his movies. I love him.
I haven't seen Queer. I still haven't seen Queer or After the Hunt. I'm falling down. Anything that came out in the last year or so,
So
I kind
good.
of need to get caught up on. I know you guys both
Well,
loved Queer a lot.
Yes,
And I love
absolutely.
Daniel Craig in like dramatic. Let him be dramatic again. I love it.
So, okay, this is our last episode of the year. I'm gonna recount from memory. So this is entertaining. I put in Todd Haynes' Far From Heaven. You put in, well, we both put all these in. No Country for Old Men, Coen Brothers. Cliff brought us Taxi Driver, and that's in.
Mhm.
We both put in One Battle After Another. Things are getting fuzzy. Drew went The Graduate, which you voted in.
You skipped one.
And
Before
shit.
that, you had a new release.
It was a Misericordia.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I love what we've done here.
Graduate,
Okay,
then
Rushmore,
Rushmore.
another kind of double feature. Was this The Secret Agent and Double Suspiria?
Double Suspiria.
All right. Next year's going to be tougher. We're going to come in with 10 votes.
Is
10
there any
votes over, like,
any
50
other
episodes?
original and remake that could possibly end up on our lists? That's like the thought experiment I'm doing. Like, what other film plus its remake are both so good that they could potentially be in there?
And probably Body Snatchers.
Dude, that's
I
really
prefer
good. Yeah.
I prefer Kaufman's. I prefer the 70s one.
Me too, but I was completely obsessed with Don Siegel's as a kid.
Kevin McCarthy's
yes,
so
yes,
good in
yes.
that movie.
We've covered some remakes before. The Truth About Charlie, which I don't think anyone would put in, even though I do love that movie.
Psycho, technically. Remake?
Interesting.
Remake or
Interesting.
something else entirely.
Something else entirely. A say film about.
Mhm.
Anyway, all right, Ethan, you got your pick in. You talk about like catering to the crowd. A pander pick from Ethan. But thank you.
The
so
crowd
much.
being
Hey,
you? What was is the crowd?
Yeah. No, I can tell this is absolutely independent. Like, okay, and to be clear, you picked this before they picked Suspiria, and neither of you knew about it.
That's why.
That was on my end. So that we did it back to back was perfect. And yeah, I'm happy to have them both. Oh, all my girls are in the canon. This is a part of the show where we recommend one more thing, even though we talked about a bunch of things. Can I do something really weird and just tell you about this journey I've been on. It's film related. So, Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair, was officially released. That is the combination of volumes 1 and 2 of Quentin Tarantino's revenge epic. Came out in 2003 and 4, respectively. This version has some differences in it, but I don't really want to get into them. I want to talk about the big difference. That is the first one is there's a dedication card, and the dedication is to Kinji Fukusaka, Japanese master genre filmmaker from Japan, whose peak was really the 1970s, and making a lot of people know him for this Yakuza what's fiveology?
Petrology?
Petrology.
I think
called
no wait, that's the
Battles.
study of rocks. Never mind.
Well, this is the study of a bunch of really hot
Quintology. I
rocks.
couldn't remember it. Quintology.
Quintology. Battles without honor and humanity, which like imagine Infernal Affairs or Departed, but like there's not just like cops versus robbers. It's like 8 different Yakuza families, and you need an absolute org chart to understand anything. And yet,
My
they
favorite kind of
play
Yakuza film.
yes, yet these 5 films play like a great Scorsese thriller, but I'm going to even link this great web that I'm creating to, remember The Irishman, how when the mobsters die, they get a title card, like how they died, and that comes from Battles Without Honor and Humanity.
Oh, nifty.
I was like, dope. Yes. And now I know where that comes from. And if it has another origin point, I don't want to know about it. Anyway, I know that because I had pre-selected my kind of December. My husband and I would been doing this thing where it's like, hey, it's Noirvember. We're gonna watch a bunch of noirs we haven't seen. This month he suggested that we do like Japanese crime thrillers from 70s. So this was like the perfect spot. So Tarantino kind of, we would have found Fukusaka anyway because he is the master of that. Among his films from this era, there are a couple that I want to mention that aren't necessarily available unless you know some websites. And
That you sail the high seas are
yes. So, well, yeah, that, or, you know, you have an affinity for a certain bird. I want to talk about a couple films that he made with Akihiro Miwa. Akihiro Miwa was a protege, or like kind of like a Chelsea girl, like one of the factory of Yukio Mishima, which I know, Andrew, we both have an affinity for him because of Paul Schrader's film, Mishima Life in 4 Chapters. Now, in my research, she is quoted as being a drag performer. If I am misgendering her, you know, I apologize. I'm doing further research. She is a assigned male at birth performer who is like, the camera has never loved someone so much and is always femme presenting. The film I want to talk about is called Black Lizard. That's a Kinji Fukusaka film starring this actress who is like the most electric screen presence. And she plays the titular character who is a master thief. But everyone in the room wants to fuck her, be her, and you understand why, because she's the most magnetic presence. This film has like a kind of labyrinthine plot about a heist. But
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter because it's played with so much verve and so fun. He's just like kind of, as I'm discovering, one of the great action directors probably ever. So I'm going to recommend the film Black Lizard. It's to encapsulate all of this, the film Black Lizard, as my one more thing.
I love the title. It feels like it should be a like a Mario Bava film or something.
Well, a lot of it kind of looks like a Bava film in its color scheme and how much fun he's just having with the camera. Do you know why she's called the Black Lizard?
Hmm.
She leaves behind a little toy black lizard at the scene of the crime everywhere. And
Oh.
it's
It's that's both more banal and disappointing somehow.
all right. So that's my one more thing in the circuitous route by which I arrived at it.
I love it.
Um,
I love how
and you can
you're
find-
like I still follow. I don't use Letterboxd anymore, but I still follow your diary, and I love how your diary has like an ebb and flow to it. When I see you get into like jags where you're trying to like devouring your way through somebody's oeuvre, either a filmmaker or an actor or something. I love it.
You're like, oh, you see a series of posters that you're like, I can't read any of those words, but they all have a bunch of samurai on them. Like Josh is in his samurai face, which is what January might be about. Mhm.
Love it.
Maybe we haven't decided yet. But you can find me at OK Josh Ray on social media and find all of us at the Take Up STL on social media. Ethan, as our guest, please go next.
So for this one, I got three things, but from one source. So
Okay.
I've been on a HBO Max kick lately. And these are like three shows that I've seen within the past month or so, in between waiting for the new episodes of Pluribus. And yeah. So I'm gonna like number these out. So like number 3 would be The Chair Company, which is also like another like really heavily talked about show this fall. And it's from Tim Robinson, who, if you don't know, is like this comedian and sketch comedy writer. And he had a big show on Netflix called I Think You Should Leave. And then it was also in a movie earlier this year called Friendship. So, he's like slowly becoming like more noticed and I guess mainstream. And I feel like this show would probably help him like fully break through into that status because it's about this guy who seems like an everyday person. He's like a father of 2 kids who is like now like growing up and lives in the suburbs with his wife and has this comfy office job. Except during a work presentation, there's like a workplace accident involving him that happens. And the whole show is him just spiraling from that and finding out about this like weird, absurdist conspiracy involving a chair company that just devolves into absolute lunacy. Like I'm in the middle of watching it, but the last episode I watched involves him like going into an apartment with someone to try to get information, and the flow of it basically goes from like him trying to do that to somehow becoming Beau's Afraid Part 2. So it was easily like probably one of the biggest laughs I got this year was just how crazy it quickly got. So look out for that. It's a really great show. I think it got renewed for a second season, so I am hoping to see where it goes further.
I did watch
And then-
this show. How was there a second season of that? I liked it. I'm not taking away your endorsement here. I'm just not understanding.
I don't know, but I feel like him and the show creator Andrew Young will find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
But number 2, now this was on Adult Swim like back in like August, September. It's this Spanish stop motion show called Women Wearing Shoulder Pads. And what's interesting about it is that it's the first Adult Swim show to not be in English. So it's the first like foreign language Adult Swim show basically. And it's from this company called Cinema Fantasma, who I think worked with either Adult Swim or Warner Brothers or something before in like another animation project a couple of years ago. So basically this is like their blank check, and it's a Spanish melodrama, very inspired by Almodovar and Dieguez Luna, where it takes place in Ecuador, and it's about this businesswoman who works in the industry of basically guinea pigs, though that's not what they're called in the show, but it's like it takes place in a world where it's like the guinea pigs serve as like a replacement for bulls, essentially. So there's like guinea pig fighting and, farming them and using them for meat. And the whole show is like her using that industry and like trying to form a campaign of making guinea pigs her pets and trying to profit off of that. Like has the same like moral thorniness of like a Spanish melodrama where it's like she's extremely fun to watch, but is also like kind of a terrible person. And it's just a very very over the top show. And it's
as a person who loves guinea pigs, I'm already distressed by this description.
it's great. It's fun. It's honestly like, probably one of the more underrated stuff that has come out this year. Honestly, I'm hoping Cinema Phantasma gets to do more with them in the future. But my number one, and it's probably like the funniest show I've seen in years, is called Ha Ha You Clowns.
Well, I've heard about this show.
So originally, it started off as like a bunch of shorts that a YouTuber named Joe Kappa did with Adult Swim, and like Adult Swim released it for their channel, and it got popular enough for them to greenlight a show version of it. And what it essentially is, it's like this animated sitcom about this single dad raising his 3 teenage sons. And it's like this wholesome family sitcom. Like I remember even in an interview, Joe Kappa even said like one of his biggest influences for it was a Christian family movie called The Buttercream Gang, which if you've heard of it, you know exactly what that means. It's a movie about these do-gooder group of kids in this small town, and like it's one of the kids moves to Chicago and becomes like gang member, and like then moves back and causes trouble. It's ridiculous, but it's going off the same wavelength of that like wholesome Christian coded content, where it's like these 3 sons are constantly put in like a wholesome enough situations. Like the first episode is basically about them trying to keep their dad up during movie night. And what I love about this show is that it's actually kind of similar with Suspiria, where it's like it's animated and edited and shot in like the most uncomfortable way possible. So it's like the character designs of everyone all look like they're 40, even the sons. Everyone talks in like this weird voice. Like all the sons literally have the same voice, where it's like this lispy, almost Australian accent.
Isn't the dad? I think somebody said that there's an Anomalisa thing going on here, where the dad and all 3 boys use the same voice,
and so it's impossible to tell them apart.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they all basically have the same voice. So it's that plus the fact during every scene, it constantly cuts to several close-ups of people's faces, or just awkward arm movements and such. It's like very disarming to watch. But then what also makes it work is like as the show goes on, it gets even weirder and weirder. So one of the main things is their mom passed away from cancer either like recently or years ago. But what essentially is like there's a background gag where it's the mom is haunting them as a spirit, and there's like all these uncomfortable hints that she possibly died from something else. Like it was either like someone killed her, and it's undoing like this weird wholesome new sincerity thing where it's like slowly revealing like there's something like even darker going on, that it's like
there's a horror movie happening in the background.
Basically, it's like a sleight of hand where it's like you don't really know where it's going, but at the same time, it's like it's hilarious.
Because I also love the title of the show. Ha Ha You Clowns is a great sitcom title.
Yeah, like the whole thing is like it's contrasting its wholesomeness with like this, with the style of an Adult Swim show. So yeah, heavily recommend that. All of them are on HBO Max, but also you can sail the high seas. So
let's see. Is that something people say? I don't say that. Oh, but I understand what you mean. Or did you make that up, Andrew?
No. This is like coy. I mean, it's kind of like ironic, coy Reddit speak for piracy, right?
I just thought we weren't allowed to say piracy.
No, we had to take up do not endorse any violation of intellectual property law. Of course, naturally.
No, pay artists, unless they're bad people, then pirate it. Or if you can't find it anywhere. Ethan, where can people find you online?
Well, I'm on the Take Up. You can also find me and a bunch of other talented St. Louis film critics on Zeke Film. And you can find me on Instagram at DocSportella3. And I'm also on Letterboxd, and my username is simply Ethan360.
Good. Yeah. Andrew Wyatt, what's your one more thing?
So I haven't watched or done a lot new in the last week. So I'm going to reverse one of your films, Josh, from
me stalking your Letterboxd account. Because
Okay,
I saw
that's
you
fun.
watch this film in like the last month or so. So now I want to reverse it and recommend it to other people because I saw you watched it. And
Did
I
I like
remember,
it?
and I remember loving it, but it's been like 15 years since I've seen it. So, and that film is Johnny Toe's Exiled.
Oh my God.
Great film, right? Okay, so there's some lore
It's
here. There's some lore here.
almost perfect.
There's some lore here.
It's such a beautiful film.
This is the first Johnny Toe film I ever saw. This is a film I watched when I was like first becoming a cinephile, quote unquote, and like binging movies from 2006 to 2007 that everybody was saying were great and trying to like educate myself. And I watched this film like from this filmmaker I'd never heard of before. Of course, I then subsequently went back and watched like his election films and some of his other stuff and grew to appreciate him. But I still, some of it is like, oh, this was my first Johnny Toe film. But some of it is just, I think it's a really distinctive film. So the crazy thing is it's been like 15, 20 years since I've seen this movie. And I couldn't tell you anything about the typical Byzantine gangster coming out of retirement plot details about it. What I can tell you is that it's visually sumptuous in a way that almost set my expectations too high for the rest of Toe's filmography, because it's a very similar plot to a lot of the stuff he's done. But I don't know if it's because he was filming on location in Macau or because like there's just some special sauce there. And it's a beautiful, visually beautiful Chinese gangster film in a way that I can't really explain. Like I remember it looks very different. In terms, it's using a filter or something to give everything this sort of yellowish orange cast. I don't know if that's like something specific that's Macau is the Mexico of Hong Kong filmmakers. Like they just put the yellow filter on. But like there's just such great visuals that have stuck with me for 20 years, even though I couldn't tell you anything about the plot. So I do know the film is currently streaming on Criterion as well as a few other places. So if you want to see, like, catch up with Exiled and Johnny Toe, specifically his broader filmography, now is definitely time to do it. I remember there's a scene where there's a floating, like, frisbee ring floating in slow motion that is still, like, lasered into my brain years later, even though I remember nothing about the plot context.
Incredible stuff with time and the compression of time, and temporal space relations, and that what you're talking about plays out over like a minute, but it's actually less than a second of real time. And so it's not only like really thrilling.
So you've seen it more recently. Can you speak to like what works about it as like a gangster story? Because I'm hazy on the details.
Well, what works about it is it really distills the genre into its essence. And so you have it and relates it back to the Western specifically. And this kind of outlaw figure who's coming back into the fold and these two rival factions. And it gives Toe the opportunity to have kind of sparse details, even though it is like you said, does have quite plotty mechanics to it. It gives them the opportunity to do these wild set pieces. And there's one set piece that I would, I don't want to over explain, but individuals from both rival factions are shot, but they both think of the same backstreet doctor to go to. And the one who arrives first has to hide, but they're hiding behind the most Hong Kong Johnny Toe billowing, hanging curtains because it's a makeshift doctor's office. So the suspense of one not being found out as like existing in the same space as the people who just shot you, but also the suspense of how much more can we just luxuriate in this kind of set piece. It's beautiful filmmaking, but it's like emotional with filmmaking too. So he's getting a lot from Leone and his kind of
really great use of like character archetypes. Like everybody in this sort of makeshift gang, I think it's a gang of 5 that sort of become the central figures who are caught between the gang war. They all slot into obvious archetypes, and it doesn't matter because it all works so beautifully.
But they're told it with such like
sparing but really exacting detail that it's really
Details
beautiful
of,
film.
and down to like details of costuming and how the actors
Mhm.
perform the side business and so forth. I'm glad you used the word set piece, because that's how I think of this film still 20 years later, is a movie of set pieces that all just really cook. Great film.
Oh, a lot
Go
of-
see
lot of
Exile
good
by Johnny
movies.
Toe. Go see Exile by Johnny Toe, and then start watching his other stuff as well.
There you go. That wraps up our 2025. We won't start with a fresh canon. We keep adding to the canon, but I think we'll come up with a different question to give to our guests. So that is to be seen, to be revealed.
Be honest, that's
Our
just so
next-
you can bring back some guests, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, but
On our next episode, also to be determined. Got a few things rolling around. There are a lot of new releases. We could do year-end stuff. I'm not sure what it will be. As soon as we find out, you'll also know. But thanks to our guest, Ethan Tarantella, for editing and helping produce the show. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you to Kayla McCullough for help with social media. Theme music by AMP. And until next time, I really don't have anything. It's the end of the year.
What's thinking about our body.
Da-da.